Hello everyone, missionary Scott Pannell here to the upper Midwest and South Dakota. I want to give you just a quick update of what God has been able to do through our family in the past few years since we've been in South Dakota, and also what He is doing in the future. We got to South Dakota in September of 2021, and our goal before we ever got here, but when we got here, was to plant a church on the west side of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, and to be able to use that church in order to reach out into the other towns that are scattered across South Dakota and the upper Midwest. And the Lord put it in our hearts the first time that we ever laid our eyes on South Dakota to use an aviation ministry in order to do that. The towns out here are spread out very far. They're not close together, and it takes hours to get to the other side of the state or even get to other towns. So God put it in our heart before we ever got here to use an aviation ministry in order to successfully plant churches across the upper Midwest. We have planted a church on the west side of Sioux Falls, and we have seen people get saved and baptized and surrendered, and people be discipled, and some folks are just excited to serve the Lord and want to move forward with the Lord. And so we're going to be able to use those people to reach out into other towns and plant churches in other towns. And so now we're at the point where we are started our aviation ministry, and we're going to be able to use that in order to reach the other towns with the gospel. The first way that God's going to be able to use the aviation ministry is by redeeming the time. There's no doubt that we don't have much time in this thing left.
We call them circuit riding preachers. They traveled on horses, but times have changed. And we went from horses to cars to, of course, airplanes.
Oh, we're climbing up to 2,300 feet right now.
And we use our airplane to redeem time, buy back time, make good use of our time.
This is what we're going to be able to do. We're going to be able to preach our Sunday service here where we're at, get in a plane, when God allows us to start planting another church in another town, get in a plane, fly to an afternoon service somewhere else, and preach a service there. And He's going to allow us to be able to do the same thing on a midweek service or a Bible study.
My year, normally, in the time that I redeem, is about 13 months long. And the way we figure that is aviation helps us to do more.
The Lord's also going to use our aviation ministry in order to plant churches. So now, obviously, we know it is not the plane that gives the gospel out. It's not the plane that preaches. It's not the plane that does the work, but it is the plane that facilitates the saints to go to those other towns and to be able to witness, be able to give the gospel out, be able to canvass areas, and to be able to plant churches in other towns that are in this part of the country. God is also going to use the aviation ministry to assist other missionaries that are here. There is other missionaries that are scattered across South Dakota and the upper Midwest here, and oftentimes those people need different supplies or need different things, and God is going to be able to allow us to use the aviation ministry in order to do that. It just so happens where we're at here in Sioux Falls. Sioux Falls is the largest city in South Dakota, and it's literally the hub to this part of the country. There's an intersection that happens here in Sioux Falls. It's I-90 and I-29, and most things that come through this part of the country, they either come through by a trucking through Sioux Falls, or they come in by a plane coming through Sioux Falls. And so this is a central hub here, and so be able to take supplies to other missionaries, be able to assist them in preaching or just encouraging them. Now, it just so happens that most of the small towns that are scattered in this part of the country have a small runway for us to land on. The next way we're going to be able to use the aviation ministry is training other missionaries to fly. And so right now we are working on our private pilot's license, and we are almost through with that. I'm almost through with that. I should be done here in just a couple weeks as we're making the video here. I'm immediately going to go on and do the rest of the training that it takes in order to get a instructor's certificate. And we've already been contacted by several other people, several other missionaries, that this is a great need for them. And if you can imagine, we got some friends that are in Alaska, and if you can imagine in Alaska where the towns, or a lot of the towns, you can't get to unless you have a plane. Everything that comes in is by aviation. Some of the small secluded towns and villages that are spread apart, the food that they're getting, that when people come in and out of a town, it's going to be by a plane. And so those missionaries out there, they need to be able to take the plane and be able to reach their area with the gospel. We could say the same thing for the jungles of Africa or Papua New Guinea or really anywhere else in the world. This is going to cut down the cost tremendously for anyone else that wants to learn how to fly. The plane that we need in order to do what God has called us to do is going to be a 1960s to 1970s Piper Cherokee 6. Now this Cherokee 6, they have an option for a 7th seat in it, and that's the one that we're going to be purchasing, and it is a 7-seater plane, and we have 7 people in our family. It's also a single engine plane, which means it's less on insurance, it's less on fuel, and less on maintenance. And we've done a bunch of research and talking to other missionaries that have aviation ministries, and this is the plane that we settle on. Not only does it have 7 seats, but it has a high useful load. So you can put about 1,500 pounds in the plane. And so if we can imagine us going and planting a church or doing a midweek Bible study in another town, us needing to take people there, a song leader and a piano player, and also being able to need to take hymnals and gospel tracts and Bibles and those sort of things. That plane is going to be able to do that. How can you help in the aviation ministry? Well, we need about $250,000, and that's going to cover the cost of the plane, and that's also going to cover the cost of the rest of the training that I need in order to get my instructor's certificate to be able to train other missionaries. Also need to be about $2,000 a month extra in support, and that's going to cover the cost of the maintenance, the hangar fees, insurance, fuel to go in the plane. We are also praying that the Lord would give us a smaller plane like a Cessna 150 or a Piper 150 in order to build hours on, in order to train those next saints for flying. Now, we have already got a hangar secured, and hangars are very hard to come by here in Sioux Falls and this over here in this area, and the Lord has allowed us to be able to secure a hangar. We don't have a plane, but I know God's going to fill that hangar with a plane. Folks, I hope that you would be in prayer for us. I hope that you would consider giving to this need, and there's 3 different ways that you can give. You can send a check to Macedonia World Baptist Missions, and we'll put that address and information on the screen there. We have a website set up where you can go and buy merchandise. You can buy our hats. You can see my hat that I have on today. We have t-shirts and things on there that you can purchase. And also, if you have an asset to give, if you have a plane that you want to donate to the ministry, you can be in contact with us, and we'll put that information on the screen and reach out to us. Excited again to see what God has done in the past and what He is going to do in the future.
Airplanes, they don't preach messages. Airplanes, they don't start churches. And so they become a facilitator to those that are doing that, like myself and others. They're tools of transportation.